an update on my own vocal journey, because I realise that that is something that I've not tapped into to create the space to talk about for a little while. And there are shifts and changes, and things that are finding their place and settling within me. And I'm very aware of how those shifts and changes are actually being felt and being expressed and ultimately communicated just through my being at the moment. So it's nice and it's interesting to bring that quality of awareness and reflection to my own process, and then to look back, along that timeline and think, okay, wow, yes, there has been some traveling and journeying, and steps and progress has been made, and the journey continues. So last month, I had a kind of final, I would say a closing chapter with regards to the vocal health kind of pathway, which certainly was initiated a good while ago, and there was a very specific branch that came off from that was related to a period of vocal rehabilitation. And that was very practical and tangible. There were clear kind of outcomes with that, and I explored manual laryngeal therapy to support muscle tension, dysphonia, and I also explored speech and language therapy as well, kind of connected with that. But underpinning, I guess, a symptomatic presentation really of some challenges that were going on underneath all of that, and woven into that in a kind of complex way, very much my own trauma space, and the relationship between that psychological and emotional space, if you like, and the physiological at points have been almost indistinguishable, in the sense that there's been that interrelationship, and that, that psychosomatic connection really of perhaps what has triggered one process has stemmed from one area, but then as that has developed, it's become something more complex, or that there's been more layers with that. So this is where it's been very helpful for me to continue to make reference to my own framework around voice, and reminding myself about this multifaceted, holistic way of thinking, but also coming back to the sense of body as instrument, and also acknowledging that a lot of these processes are impacted by things that are external to us and external to our bodies, that we are shaped and influenced by so many things. And yes, that initial branch was quite clear. And as I said, because there's been a kind of an ongoing therapeutic process with trauma work, in the undercurrent of that, then there has been additional branches that have still been connected to the vocal health piece, which is of interest in the sense of mapping and understanding that when we have had a shock, or had a very visceral physical experience, or symptoms have presented, and those have had to be addressed in terms of like, okay, what is arising here and how can we look at that, and kind of like drilling down into that in detail, especially if addressing that challenge lies beyond your scope or knowledge, or you need to bring in additional support there. There can often be really interesting challenge points around that in terms of the impacts to your confidence, and looking at that thread or lens of like voice and identity, the subsequent complications that can transpire in terms of that sense of how we relate to the part of ourselves that feels like it's not in sound health, or that there's some disruption there, or there's something that's broken and not working properly. And certainly that story or that narrative piece can become heavy, and also can bring with it its own challenges, looking at that perhaps through this kind of psychotherapeutic lens of you might have the health problem or the challenge there, but then you've got the emotional complexity, maybe the stress, anxiety, or other things that are kind of emerging or born out of your relationship to that experience, how you're relating to what is going on, how that is changing the way that you are relating to yourself, how empowered you might feel in the process, particularly in a health journey where, as I say, you might need to be in a situation where you are placing trust in the hands of other practitioners or clinicians. You're making yourself vulnerable. You are opening yourself up to receive care. All of which, these are things that are quite exposing anyway. And then with the additional pressure around your instrument or something that is connected to your creative expression, that additional layer of vulnerability then, where, yes, you're allowing yourself to be guided through a process or protocols to support you, but you're maybe in unfamiliar territory, so you're really having to take a leap of faith and work collaboratively with others, but also work with new parts of yourself that are emerging through the process of actually being on a therapeutic pathway. There's something very humbling about that, where you're uncovering, you are finding inner resource and tools that you didn't necessarily know you had. And I think this is where the thanks and the extension of gratitude to multidisciplinary practitioners working in the field of voice, which is so vast and complex, and there are so many different facets to it, but ultimately are working in that person-centered way, in the interdisciplinary capacity, but also, yeah, just meeting you as a person, navigating your own journey, and often the skill that is involved in terms of how you're hearing and holding space for someone, letting them explain, what's going on for them. And that might come with the additional baggage of the worry and the anxiety, or any number of these additional emotional challenges and complications. And the amount of time and space and resource actually that is needed for practitioners and clinicians to be able to hold and meet and honor that, and also to allow that to be part of the tapestry of what informs their approach to care as well, because it might be that there are other aspects that weave into how best to support an individual, that it's not just physical therapy or a surgical intervention, or for example. But yeah, that to say also that the kind of subsequent or secondary branch that emerged for me was almost another side quest of, oh, there's something else here that I'm not quite sure about. And I've been in this space where there has been a disruption, or there has been a challenge, and that has brought up vulnerability. And now there's something else that I'm not quite sure about. And because, then you've been swimming in that space, and there's a heightened awareness and sensitivity, and perhaps more anxiety around, like, approaching the instrument with care, approaching the way that you're exploring and looking after the voice with, you're still in that kind of like vulnerable space in your early stages of like transitioning out of that therapeutic stage, that actually, there was a kind of secondary movement then towards, oh, I better get something checked out there, because there's something there that's causing me a bit of worry. And I think I'd done a little update before the end of the year, and I'd had another scope done that ruled everything out, and that was all fine. And the recommendation following on from that had been to have a consultation again with speech and language therapy. So I did that. And this is coming to the point of this being equivalent to what feels like a kind of a close, or that loop has been closed in a way that feels very affirmative and supportive, because ultimately that was an additional assessment that was then done actually over the phone. So that's opened my awareness to the fact that that is actually possible to do all of your like speech and language assessment from the auditory point of view over the phone. And just to talk through the process of, okay, what is going on, and what tools and resources are available, and what would be most helpful at this point, and is there a specific area of development where there's a question mark there. And just to have another practitioner with a particularly enriched lens on, one particular facet of voice, and to have that like sounding board and reflection, very helpful, very helpful. And what that actually facilitated on a much deeper level than just ticking that kind of psychological box of like, oh, okay, it's been confirmed and affirmed that actually things are okay, and a little bit of development in one particular area is going to support kind of vocal management, but that there is any lingering anxiety there about there being something wrong or not quite, functionally okay, has subsided, and that worry has subdued. And so it just made me think about the skill of, as I've said, vocal practitioners working across different disciplines, but the speech and language angle, particularly shouting out to those that are working in that field, because I think it's so easy to underestimate the power of a supportive conversation, regardless of the topic, and taking even away the kind of underlying dynamics that might exist there of client and practitioner, and any insinuations of hierarchy that exist within that kind of framework. To have a human conversation and connection where you're talking about your voice and your experience of voice, and your perceived your perceived awareness of what's going on, and to have that connection point around that, for me at least, from the point of view of a creative practitioner, it becomes very, very difficult, almost impossible, to separate any challenges around what might be going on with the voice from your personal identity. So coming back to this idea of there having been points where there has been something blocking or something going on that has required a second opinion, and to somehow not become completely wrapped up in, oh God, there's something that my voice is broken, I'm broken, that it's so easy that it happens actually in a quite innocent and unconscious way, and through the process of having a discussion with someone that has a specific branch of knowledge and can speak to that specific part, it kind of frees up that part. It's like if that part comes with all these associated attachments of like anxiety and worry, for you to be able to take that part to a practitioner or clinician and be like, can we have a look at this? And for that, to be addressed, it helps to alleviate and subside all of these associated distresses that come in tow. So it was also reminding me about those additional communication skills and thinking back to like counseling skills or like other advanced communication skills and listening skills that are just, you know, they're part and parcel of the toolkit for for people working in these settings, and it's second nature. But when you get a good space holder and someone that has that capacity to put you at ease, you know, that supportive conversation just makes all the difference. So it does feel like there is now a kind of closure, in a sense, of any lingering doubt or worry that was associated with this kind of secondary requirement for consultation. Although there were kind of very clear physical symptomatic things going on, there was also an awareness that the anxiety that was driving the need to, oh, like, let's get this checked out, that was actually kind of a residual emotional a residual emotional aspect of that initial journey, and just feeling like, yeah, there's something that's not, I'm not quite feeling like this has been brought to a conclusion. There's still some energy that's kind of stuck in this. So the weight that feels like it has lifted is massive, because it actually provides that assurance, and then also the kind of affirmation around the fact that there are these tools that I have already. There are also lots more to explore, and some of those are kind of triage tools for when I notice that there are kind of maybe more vocal fatigue related things going on. Hopefully I've done the preparation prior to that to negate the need to use those other tools, but the fact is that those tools are there too. So yes, there's greater confidence around the toolkit that I have, that I've built up, that I've been developing, and that ultimately has been enhanced by this whole vocal health journey process, of which, you know, I am very grateful for. And then coming back to the undercurrent with all of this, which is essentially the trauma piece, which is kind of was the initiator, if you like, to all these other things. The process with that is that now I am about to enter into another phase or a different stage of therapeutic work, and yeah, I'm kind of, this is like the inhale before the deep dive period. So yes, I have been kind of waiting to explore this in this way for a while. So yeah, now the time is upon me, and I look forward to learning, I guess, more about my voice as I navigate this process. And also, yeah, on the other side of that as well, the integration period, and ultimately, yeah, what energy is freed up through the process of that more in-depth reprocessing work, and how that comes through in my expression, and how that directly translates to my communication quality. And yes, I'm just, yeah, it feels like it's been quite a kind of pathway to get to this point, and yeah, it's still going. I'm still going. So and of course, you know, this is my like personal reflection and kind of autoethnographic documentation, and yeah, the emphasis will be on taking that time for, you know, increased care and self-care practices around this next period. But naturally, there is going to be a translation of insight that is informing and continuing to shape my work in the way that I'm holding space for others, and also driving the kind of research branch too. So yeah, I'm kind of intrigued to see where my own process takes me, and how that enriches and continues to shape the research and the questions that I'm asking, and also, yeah, the scope of what I feel is possible for me to be able to share with others based on what I anticipate to be an increased capacity, and an increased energy availability once I've kind of got a little bit more of that life force back, and I'm able to put it to good use. So yeah, that's where things are at right now, and yeah, I'm looking forward to navigating this next stage, because I think I feel like I've got the map, I've got the compass, I've got the rucksack with all the tools that I might need, and I've got the flask with concoction to nourish me through, and I also have a clear sight set on where I want to go, which feels, yeah, it feels like a pretty good place to be, considering I know I'm about to move into, like, you know, quite a steep ascent, and kind of potentially challenging terrain. But I will see you on the other side of that, and yeah, there will be more updates to follow. And as always, stay connected, keep looking up for updates on current offerings, and yeah, to learn more about how True Voice Creations can support you in your own process, in your own vocal journey and vocal development, personal development. And if you have any questions, if anything I've said is resonating with you, or you're curious, you'd like to learn more, please reach out, and yeah, let me know how I can be of assistance, and look forward to connecting. Take care.